Unfortunately, we have got quite a stacked agenda, so please bear with us. I will start firstly by any apologies.
None, Chair.
Any public questions or statements?
There is a comment to read out, which I'll take under agenda item 15 from Ms. Valerie Gardner.
Okay, that's fine. Any councillor questions and statements?
I believe Councillor Nettle has a statement.
Thank you, Chair. My question actually is the maintenance, who maintains the upkeep of Water Lane, in as much that if you've been there, Water Lane was in the journal just recently under the letters column, and it's a delightful walk if you're walking from the station to the cathedral, and yet it's overgrown, and the City Council in the past has, when I've contacted them, removed the odd shopping trolley and bags from the water. But unfortunately, the vegetation now is overtaking the water. And in fact, from the end of Cambridge Road, which I know very well, I walk that way, it's come right across. And it could affect certainly flooding if there's more water that comes down. And also the vegetation is on the walls. And the danger of that, of course, is that the wall could be more prone to crumbling. And so the question really is, and I'm sure it's a multi-agency and a property owner's responsibility, but I just wondered if there's something that the City Council could do or take the lead on. Thank you.
Mark, over to you.
Yep. So Councillor Nettle is absolutely correct. This isn't a piece of land or property that belongs to the City Council, so we have no direct responsibility to be able to do anything with the overgrown vegetation. However, if Council would like officers to work with stakeholders such as Wiltshire Council, the Environment Agency, if there's concern over flooding, and looking to maybe contact residents or property owners in that area to try and resolve the issue, then we'd be more than happy to do so.
I know it's a question, but may I have a supplementary then? May I ask if councillors are minded to ask the officer to investigate that?
Okay, councillors, how do you feel? Are you happy for Mark to investigate? Are we all agreed? Okay, Mark, I'll leave that to you to investigate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Minutes of previous meeting. Have you all had a chance to look at them? Are you all happy? Yep. Okay, I'll sign them off later. Declaration of interest. Jeremy.
Sorry, Chair, it's me again. I have a non-pecuniary interest in agenda item 8 because for many years I know the architect that's presenting this evening.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Dispensations.
None, Chair.
Okay, that leads me to my announcements. Nothing new this week, other than tonight we're doing things slightly different. We have the architect here for the Poultry Cross, so I'm going to let her go first, and then I will be doing Rise 61, and then we'll move on to the trees. Okay, everyone all right with that? Okay, that's what we'll do then. Right, Mark, back to you.
Thank you very much. So before I hand over to Louise Solman here from Loop Architects, I'll just give a brief overview. So as you all know, the Poultry Cross was found to be in a very poor condition we've commissioned Louise to oversee getting the designs and work together so that we can have that fully costed in the coming months. It will be split into two phases of work. Phase 1, which is the priority works, and then phase 2, which will be the subsequent phases. You have to excuse my dates on the paper that I put forward. It's not 25-26 because there's no budget in this year. It'll be 26-27 and then 27-28 onwards for phase 2. There are a number of recommendations, but we can have a look at those once Louise done her update on where we're at. So I'll hand over to Louise. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Chair. I've got some slides which I'll talk through, which give a brief overview of how we've got to where we are and the proposal going forward.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know who's in charge of the slides. Thank you. Yes, anyway, very brief background. The Poultry Cross is one of 4 monuments, 4 market crosses which existed in Salisbury. This is now the only one that stands, and it's very unusual nationally because it is a ornate structure with a roof. Often they're just a sort of stone column or a stone plinth. This is a Grade 1 listed building and a scheduled ancient monument, which sort of trumps Grade 1 listing. Therefore, we need to go direct to Historic England for scheduled monument consent to do anything to this building. Next slide. This is how it stood for many years, built in the 14th century, hexagonal shape, no roof and no high-level stone as you see today. That was added by the Victorians in about 1850. So for a long time it looked like this, meeting place, central marketplace. As of about April this year, it is now on Historic England's Heritage at Risk register as a result of what we found. It was previously under the care of the Unitary Authority, and they're obviously now within Salisbury City Council remit. Thank you. And this is how we know it today. This is following the additions in 1850 with the high-level flying buttresses, a new lead roof. And I think what's interesting about this picture is the weather vanes on the pinnacles, which no longer exist, but just sort of evidence that it has changed over time. It now has a seat around the base. For a long time, it had a small square wall around the base of it entirely, and there's an awful lots of illustrations in the library and in the museum recording this. The upper levels were added, designed by the architect who also built the library, and a local mason did the work. So it's had a lot of local tinkering. In 2022, the vehicle collision meant that we needed a significant structural scaffold to support the structure in its entirety. It was structurally compromised. What that enabled was a close inspection of the roof, which is what you can see here. And you've got a sort of lead conical roof and then an asphalt modern gutter around the perimeter. I suspect, although I don't know, that lead roof may even be the original from the Victorian edition. So it may well be 170 years old. The lifespan of lead is roughly about 100 years. So it's well past its sell-by date. The little marks there, some of those are intended fixings, those little sort of rivets, but other ones are repairs and welts to try and repair holes in the lead. On other facets of the upper element, there are splits, there are movement joints. Lead expands and contracts in heat, and over time that just weakens it and splits. The same is true of the gut around the bottom. And then if you slide on again, you see the damage that the water has done, generally seeping through those cracks. You've got a set of radial beams, timber beams that come from the central stone column, and then each meter a buttress. They're about 6 inches square, and in some locations they're now down to about 1 inch thick, and we're not quite sure what the bearing is into the wall. And this came about in June when we had a structural engineer come and assess it, because although we could see the watermarks, we couldn't get up inside the bird netting and have a really good sort of look around to assess that. You can also see in the right-hand picture there, the sort of white staining where those timbers are severely damaged under the lead. So there's work to do to the main structural timbers, but also to the boarding as well. This is one of my earlier drawings. The colours haven't come out too well, but it just starts to record the damage. And this was at a point where we were beginning discussions with Historic England, We've now been assigned a sort of archaeological officer there who will take us through the scheduled ancient monument consent. Those red areas are the worst affected areas of timber decay and mostly affecting the principal structure. Green and orange are lesser elements of decay, but still I'm suspecting that once we take the lead roof off, those elements will be in poor condition. The sort of discussion around phasing has sort of evolved through trying to balance cost, planned spending, planned maintenance, and disruption to city centre market life. So what we're looking at within phase one is sort of the high level stuff, the Victorian later stuff. So this is the flying buttresses and the roof repairs. That will require a scaffold again, but once that thorough work has been done, it would enable phase two, which would be sort of each facet of the hexagon to do the conservation, cleaning and repair to the masonry work. That could happen either one bay or two bays at a time over several years if need be, and actually that could be fairly localized and wouldn't necessarily need to disrupt city centre life, market trading and those sort of things. It's a sort of a brief timescale of how we've got to where we are now. I was appointed in March. We then went and tendered measured surveys. And this is, again, we needed a level of information in that survey that was akin to sort of Historic England requirements when you're dealing with cultural heritage. So we've got a set of surveys, and now we've begun the discussion with Historic England and also other consultants in the team in terms of the specialist structural engineer. And now we're looking at building services. The dialogue with Historic England has gone on throughout, and we're now almost at a point where we'll have a set of documentation for phase one, which can go forward for pricing and scheduled monument consent. This was just a snapshot of the survey. So this is a photogrammetric survey. So this is stone by stone accuracy, and bearing in mind that nobody had any information relating to this structure at all at the beginning of the year. We now have very detailed drawn records of everything, which can be used, indefinitely into the future for everything, whether it's, changing light bulbs or keeping some sort of record of maintenance. You've got a thorough record now. This was a combination of drone survey, sort of real like-for-like photogrammetry, which is now how we've used these drawings to develop the scope of repair. And I think what's come to light in this process is the opportunities that it potentially offers to the city as well, and to everybody who uses it and passes it and probably loves it a bit. And it's a landmark of where we live. Now is the time, if we're going to be invasive and update the roof, and to think about the opportunities it might facilitate. Upgrading lighting, for example. There's some flood lighting on the roof, but the cable trails around and comes from Gale's Bakery. That needs to be consolidated within the structure. It would be nice to have flood lighting outside it, but also light it inside, because there's no lighting inside at all at the moment. It's a bit of a dingy, dark space of an evening. And perhaps there's more to add to it. Does it need any data allowance? Can it be upgraded in other ways? Would there be any sense in upgrading the electrical supply so that market traders could use it? Could it become an event space? Should we put a time capsule in the roof? There's all sorts of things you could do now when we're going at it, a bit more thoroughly than it's ever seen in recent times, to make an event of it. And this sort of started with backwards and forwards sketches with the technical team and with Historic England. So this is sort of looking at lighting and new design for the new lead roof. And then we are now, if you slide to the last one, we're in the thick of the technical design now, coordinating the last of the details with the engineer. So you'll have a technical package of drawings, specification, schedule of works. And what we're trying to build into that is every eventuality to ensure that the cost at the end allows for the bits that we don't yet know, because there will be an element of not knowing the condition of that timber under the lead until we strip it off. Thank you.
Right. Does anyone have any questions for our architect? Oh, Councillor Johnson.
Good evening. I was just wondering if there is also scope for planning defences against vehicles, so it's not struck again in the future. Is that your remit? Could
It
be?
can be, yes. I mean, it's not at present, and it was a conversation we had with the Wiltshire County Conservation Officer when we dealt with the vehicle collision. It would require listed building consent, it would require some design. I think the discussion at that point, and this is going back to 2022, was the impact on the setting. If you start putting concrete bollards with flowers on that look like sort of dialects stood in the street, does that actually detract from the setting of the poultry cross? And was this just a freak one-off accident? Or is it worth bearing in mind? Because there is precedent throughout history of low walls and other, so, you know, there is a case to put something back, but I think it would depend on the appetite.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. It seems like we're in a good, safe pair of hands, so it's really nice to meet you. I enjoyed reading your material over the weekend. Couple of points, really. I think, as you just alluded to, scaffolding up there for too long is a very negative thing. You know, the cathedral suffers from it all the time. We've got a lot of visitors, so minimising the time when people can't see the poultry cross would be good. And obviously the question on everybody's lips really is the costings for all this. I mean, clearly we would all want to use this opportunity to enhance the poultry cross, make it, you know, better. We have a finite budget. We need to find funding from elsewhere. I don't know whether you or Mark want to tackle the elephant in the room, really, of costings, please.
So, yeah, as Louise indicated, we're not quite there yet. On the final slide where Louise has been getting the specification together, we're not quite at the point of going out and getting putting this, you know, to tender or getting that in place. If you look at the timeline, we're looking at this side of Christmas to have those figures, but we just don't have it quite yet. I wouldn't like to put a figure on it because I'm not an expert.
I don't know if there's an argument to say that we put everything in and then do a value engineering exercise, even if it were the infrastructure and the cable runs for future building services that we don't need just yet, whether we go for the Rolls Royce and then scale back, depending on how, yeah, it would depend on a costing exercise.
Councillor Charleston.
Thank you, Chair. Really fascinating. Thank you. I guess following on from Councillor Taylor and the scaffolding, how big are we talking in terms of footprint and we talk about disrupting the market and everything? What exactly does that look like?
I think to get the roof off,
Yeah.
we would have to, you could come above head height, but then you would need a walkway there, a working platform around the outside. That would probably preclude access underneath.
Yeah, fine. Okay.
But that element would be the most disruptive. Beyond that, it would be a facet or two at a time, possibly even from a tower to clean and then do some of the masonry repairs.
And then my actual question was going to be if that's all right. So we're now on the risk register, the ancient monument status, Heritage England. I'm kind of getting the assumption of all this that we're obliged to do this, but there's no kind of, well, we can put it off for another 10 years, et cetera, et cetera. My impression is that
I think
we have to go with this. And I'm not denying we should. I think it's good thing to conserve our history, but I'm just interested to know, being the status it's in, the state it's in, and the status it has, it's upon the City Council, we must do this.
yes, to a degree, and these things don't get better if left. They don't get cheaper if left. That being said, it's propped and secure at the moment, so if it wasn't this year but in 2 years, then that's potentially an option. And then I think there is an element, and I don't know this for sure, that being on the Heritage at Risk register potentially opens some funding streams. And that's a discussion that's underway with Historic England at the moment.
Councillor Nettle.
Thank you. Great presentation, Louise, and really good detail in the papers. I suppose our forefathers had an insight, didn't they, really, of putting that wall around it in case any carriages or drunken horsemen came that way. And then we, of course, naturally wanted the space, and so we removed it all, and here we are. I want to ask a professional question of you, really, and that is, it's gone through, and the slide showed you how many iterations it's gone through. So the Victorian, obviously, where is the wooden beams, it's a question. To what extent could you not restore it to its current glory? Could you restore it to a pre-Victorian glory?
Yes, you could. And this is sort of interesting conservation philosophy, because everybody seems to hate what the Victorians did because they were so brutal. But do you, future generations may actually say, who are we to decide that we like this bit, but we don't like that bit? And how do you pick and choose? Maybe somewhere in the middle is an argument where we add a layer of our story and our time to this, and keep what's gone before. Interestingly, the roof previously would have had stone vaults, much like the cloisters of the cathedral, and a plaster ceiling and a very low slung lead roof probably. And you can see and the underside of the structure where they've just been hacked off. So they were very brutal. I think we would struggle with historic England to say, right, we'll go right back to as it was in the 14th century, because I think it just tells the story of the evolution of the building, and that's part of the history.
Councillor Wells.
Yes, just coming back to the original point about looking at the essential work, which will, make the basic structure secure, and phasing the work. Is there likely to be an issue where you could end up in a position of doing some basic repair, which would then prevent you from doing the additional things because you can't access it? Do you understand what I'm saying? Are there certain elements of nice to have things that could be eliminated, that might be eliminated if you approve some of the basic work at the outset?
I think there's an element to building in provision for future work, but the lead has had its day, the asphalt has had its day. The minute you take that off, you're going to expose timber, which I'm expecting to be a bit woolly and soft. And obviously within my package of work, I will build in an assumption that most of that is decayed for costing purposes, so that we've got a worst case scenario. That sort of work is quite, you can't do that piecemeal really. Once you've taken the lead off, you have to do the timber repairs, and then you have to put a lead roof back. You have to make it watertight really. What we can do within that is allow for trunking cable routes and future ways of adding, if you don't do floodlighting now, say, or if that is built in that infrastructure that you can then plug in later, that would probably be the option. I think the roofing as a standalone project has to go as one wholesale project.
Councillor Foster.
Thank you. Not wanting to give you a sort of blank remit, but almost to go the opposite way of restoring backwards. But I like this idea of almost, well, why can't we 150 years later make a 21st century mark on it, but without going crazy? But I think that idea of, as you say, putting in new ideas. I mean, I was looking at it, there's seating around the centre. Could we put seating around some of the legs to, I think there's ideas there. So it was mentioned earlier, and almost to more formally note amongst us, give us all the options so that we can then assess them and, put in some, we've mentioned spotlighting, Wi-Fi, additional seating, let's think of really what we could do with this opportunity. And then next time we can, as you say, sort of do a value assessment of what we actually want to go forward with. So yeah, that was more, it was a comment, I like it, but yeah, I think there was nods around the room of almost more formally, show us the options we can think about, and then we can make an informed choice. Thank you.
Councillor Riddle.
I think that sounds quite sensible. May I propose then that we ask you to, when you're doing your costings and the rest of your preparatory work, to come up with the full bells and whistles package, and then we can pare it back as needs be according to our finances. I think that's the way to go. So, if members agree, anybody like to second that?
Okay, I've took that into account. But before we go ahead with the vote, I know our CEO wants to say something.
Councillors, speakers, thank you very much on this issue. it would be wrong of me not to point out at the moment that we have £0, 0 pence currently in our medium-term financial plan for what is likely to be many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds. So absolutely hearing the direction of travel that you as councillors are selecting, but we must find a way of paying for this. I think it is positive that we have linked up with national organisations, but I also think it would be folly to assume that they're going to put their hand in their pocket for any significant amounts of money as well. So I think there is some very hard realities here about timescales and about the amount of money that will come forwards from the detailed plans that we'll see before Christmas. Thank you.
Okay, so with that in mind, obviously we've been shown recommendations. How do you all feel? Should we do like Annie said and do the all bells and whistles, see what that would cost, and then we can scale it back? So do we instruct Mark to go ahead with that?
Just, sorry.
Oh,
It might be implied, but almost my thought was, and what we do at work in these situations, as long as all the options are broken out, I think that it's not that we're committing to the all bells and whistles.
No.
It's let's see it line
Yeah.
by line, and then we can react. I think.
yeah, absolutely. Councillor Nettle.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that. And I was also going to add, this is a very significant monument in the city. And seeing how people are very keen to have these monuments protected for life, I'm sure that there will be an element of funding from local residents that would be willing to support this.
Okay, so I've had a proposer and a seconder. Do you all agree? We let them carry on and get all the costings and then come back? Yeah? Okay. Unanimous.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Don't do that, Jenny. So our next thing is Rise 61. Good evening, Robin.
So yeah, Robin's here this evening to talk about a proposal he would like councillors to consider for a new facility to go in next to the pump track that's currently under construction. So I'll just hand over to Robin.
Thanks, Mark. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. So I run a charity called Rise 61. It's a local charity to Bemerton Heath. It was started by local residents after 5 years of voluntary youth work. In 2014, we started it. Our vision is a better Bemerton for all, and we've always been led in that into what young people and local people want on the estate. And so this project is fits in with that. If you go to the next slide, I think there's a video. I don't know if it plays or not, just to show you what we do quick, but don't worry if it doesn't. That's all right.
Apologies, I've got it down as a PDF here rather than a video.
That's fine. Yeah, so you can go on our YouTube channel if you want to see more about what we do. But this is our team. So we started the charity with £300 and now we've got 11 staff, and they are all working hard to support local people, local young people. We do a lot of different projects on Bemerton Heath. And we are here, I am here today to ask you if you could sell or lease us the Castle Park Play Park land, so we can build a community facility that will enhance and help protect the new pump track development. So that's a picture of the site with a little idea of what the pump track will be like. But and this idea wasn't so it wasn't sort of our idea or my idea. We were part of the consultation process for the pump track. During that, it was identified that the play park is maybe not used as much as it used to be or could be. And also the people who build these pump tracks also said that they work so much better when there's like a presence, like adults and like people watching over it. And I think one of the residents, who's a member of the Resident Association, suggested that the City Council give it to us. And yeah, got us thinking. I thought it was a great idea. We had already been talking to the sort of team behind the whole project about how important it would be and how much we'd like to be present down there, and they'd love us to be present down there just so we could help engage with young people, so we could help young people and look after it, so we could help fix their bikes, so we could help provide bikes, because we run a bike hub already on the Heath. So yeah, I took the proposal to the Residents Association and the interagency group, and Adele took it to the community conversations panel. So these are all sort of key stakeholders in the local community, and everyone was in favour of the proposal. So that was good. If you go to the next slide. And yeah, we're basically very excited about it for a lot of reasons. As I said, these facilities, and it is going to be an incredible facility, and whatever you may have read in the journal, like the community are really excited about it, and they were consulted, and so yeah, we're really excited about this facility, and I think we could help make it a lot better if we had that land, and we could also hopefully develop a facility that would allow sort of parents of children using the pump track, or the children can watch their parents use the pump track, but basically a place to chill out and make it more of a whole community sort of experience, rather than it becoming a place where the sort of law of the jungle rules and not everyone can go to. Which, because it is a little bit out of the way, could be a problem. We run an active hub, so we've done like fitness and gym work, because that's what the young people wanted, and we don't have a gym of our own, so it potentially could be a place where we could do that. And also the site of our bike hub isn't ideal, so it would make sense to have the bike hub by the pump track, I think. So we have the expertise already within the charity about fixing bikes, about running sort of bike rides and stuff like that. You may be thinking, why do we need another building? Because we have got planning permission to build a building on Gainsborough Close. And what I would say is that building, although it'll be a game changer for us, is still quite small. So we're talking about a little community facility for probably max 40 people to fit into. So, you know, there's 1,000 young people on the Heath, 7,000 residents, and we work with over 200 a year. So there's space for more. And like I said, having a different type of space next to a different type of facility for different types of young people and their needs, I think makes a lot of sense. And also, Jenny will know that Bemerton Heath is hyper-localised. So, you know, a facility on Gainsborough Close will really cater for people in that area, but it's good to have things spread out around the Heath. So, yeah, I think that would be good. And the Harlequins is an incredible asset. Yeah, our proposal, because we have experience of doing these sort of things as well, so we know what goes into it, and we are just proposing that you give us a lease for the land or sell us the land, and then we would basically cover all the costs that are associated with developing the facility. But because of that, and because of the amount of time and effort and money we'll put into it, it would have to be a very long-term lease for us to be worth it, or like I say, or look at selling it to us. And also because I think, obviously to develop something like this with the community and then to raise the funds and to go through planning permission, it all takes a long time. So we would ask in that time that the budget is found to remove the play equipment that's already there so that we've got like a blank slate to work from. Because I think the council would be a lot better set up to do that than we would. Yeah, and then we would take responsibility for obviously the ongoing maintenance, so it wouldn't be an ongoing drain. And again, we just ask that any ground rent that we have to pay would help us, as it is very much a community facility. Next slide. Yeah, timeline. I think it's so hard with timelines, but having had experience of doing the youth hub development and obviously not having completed that yet, I'm like the fact that we're coming to you first for a lease, because actually the lease is what's delayed us so long. And it's really hard when you have we've got funders commit money to the facility, but we're waiting years for the lease, and it means it dilutes the process a little bit. So I think if we can get the lease agreed and signed off in the beginning, and then it allows us a really clear run to get the plans developed with the community, get planning permission, raise the funds, and it can all happen sort of in that sequence, which is good. And yeah, I would hope that in the next 3 years at most, we would be able to deliver this. Yeah. Why we believe we're the ideal partner. Like I said, we have developed facilities that are really inclusive and that everyone loves, like the bike hub, the community garden. We have the ability to raise finance. That's how we've grown the charity. So we have experience with that. We like to think we're very professional in our approach, and we've got very robust safeguarding policies and all of that obviously you guys have to think about. And we very much work in partnership. So most of our staff live on Bemerton Heath. And, I'm chair of the interagency group. I go along to the residents. We very much always want everything that we do to work with the community and complement the other stuff that's going on. And yeah, as I said, we do run a bike hub. So we're really passionate about bikes, and again, we just love this pump track that's being developed and want the best for it. And I've just got some photos of our garden that we kind of we realized we'd have the funding to do this project sort of around this time last year and managed to deliver it by April. So when we've got the councils working with us, then we can sort of make this stuff happen. And yeah, I've just finished. There's some nice quotes from the community about our work from our recent survey. So yeah, that's my proposal. Thanks for listening.
Okay, before any of you have questions, I slipped up. I should have declared an interest. With my other hat, I'm chair of the Bemerton Heath Residents Association, have been for the last 6 years. So I've done a lot of work with the interagencies, and I've done a lot of work with Robin and his team. Quick backstory on that park. After speaking with residents, I've lost count of how many times they've said to me, that park, there's broken glass down there, people have been having fires, because nobody sees it. That's where they all hang out and think they can do what they like. And the amount of young kids that have missed out on it, especially over the summer, the families haven't gone there. Will it be missed? No, because you've got other assets across the estate. We've obviously, Robin did bring this to the association. As councillors, we spoke about it. So I leave you to ask Robin, any of your questions.
Hello, I went up there to the park when we were looking at the potential bike track, pump track, that's now going ahead. And I'd just like to can you help me envisage how large this is going to be in the middle of it? I know where it is in the where the swings and things, where the climbing frame things were. But can you tell me how big it's going to be and how much in terms of the bulk of the building?
How big that we want to build the
building.
facility?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a good sized site. It's bigger than the car park where we developed the youth hub. I think it could fill that whole site. It could fill part of that site. It all depends on what the community wants there, how much that's going to cost, and yeah, whether we think we can deliver it. But obviously, we would like to make as good a facility as possible. And as we say, we'd love something to be. It'd be great if there was something around bikes. So obviously, like a place that bikes could be fixed, a place to store bikes. We'd love to have some sort of community gym because these are already projects that we do. And then definitely some sort of community space. And I know Jenny's talked about a place like for toddlers to play whilst they're older siblings, because the Heath's very intergenerational. So I don't know exactly, but it wouldn't be huge and it would be appropriate to the need and also the area. So, yeah.
Yes, thank you. I'm just thinking about, how much green space will be left and how it would sit in the
Oh yeah,
in
well,
the
I was
landscape there.
thinking,
'Cause
I
it
was
sort of
only
dips
thinking
down,
of
doesn't
the
it?
site of the play park, so not taking
Nowhere else.
more land from the surrounding area.
Chris?
I love it. I think it's a great initiative. I loved reading about it over the weekend. I'm very supportive of what Rise 61 is doing. I think it's marvellous. I have some anxieties, only in that Rise 61 is a relatively, in the scheme of things, relatively small and new organisation, and you're asking for a lease or ownership of Salisbury City Council land, and nobody knows what the future holds. So really my question is to officers, really. If we are going to give away or lease away for 125 years this plot of land and therefore have no access to it, in the reasonable foreseeable future, is that a sensible option? Or should we put in a bit like we've been talking about toilets, some kind of clawback clauses in any arrangement in extremis that the city council could, if 61 goes bust and you guys lose interest in 30 years time when you're as old as me, then, we might want to have a new arrangement, and giving up the plot completely without any caveats, I think is a bit challenging for me. Thank you.
There's usually break clauses though in the lease, so I would imagine those would be put in. And we wouldn't, I think the lease would be provisional. It would actually get signed off when the actual, I think this is about giving us the agreement in principle, and then it would probably get signed off after you could see the actual facility.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is very much in principle, our councillors on board with officers then having these, discussions to make sure that everything is watertight in terms of, as we say, those break clauses, making sure that the council's asset continues to be an asset, and we're able to look after it, which is why on the recommendations I've recommended, considering a lease and not selling the land, because I think that would, selling a piece of land right in the middle of the land that we own or maintain wouldn't be my recommendation. Of course, it's over to councillors to make that decision.
Councillor Wells.
I sort of want to take a slightly different angle from the point of view of looking into the future. When I attended the site meeting at the pre-planning stage, there was somebody there that had experience of setting up one of these, and they said one of the benefits is that it attracts people from outside the immediate community, which I think would be a good thing. It would certainly help what you're proposing to thrive. But one question I do have is, have you thought about the capacity of the site to, shall we say, engage people without it becoming overcrowded? And have you thought of any plans that you might have in terms of age group restrictions or blocking off periods of time? So in other words, have you got any sort of plans for managing that should it happen? Hopefully that will happen, as happened elsewhere in similar sites. So I'd just like to hear what you've got to say about how you might manage that in the future.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think what we would build would have to include the ability to shut off certain areas. So I would think the bike part of it would probably be what's most useful to people from off the estate and be most used. So having the ability to sort of separate that, because you can obviously only run it's just like any building has a capacity. And when it gets capacity, it gets too full and you either need to shut it or, ask people to move outside. So having some sort of outdoor seating and sort of some sort of way of sort of managing that space well. But, we had, we basically, like with what came out of the consultation to do with the Youth Hub on Gainsborough, and it was actually some young people that came up with these ideas of like partition walls and just ways to separate the space. And obviously you could then use the space for different things at different times with different groups. So yeah, I think we'd be able to manage that. And like you say, I think for all those people who are drawn to the pump track from the wider area, again, they're going to have a much nicer experience of it. And we're going to be able to be there and try to mediate between any potential clashes that there might be as a sort of, again, adult presence to help that whole site run smoothly.
Councillor Charleston.
Thank you. Just one more question about that. You were talking about different sections, so presumably you'd be looking at some sort of flexibility in how it's set up, which isn't necessarily permanent and it can be varied for different times. Is that what you're saying, or have I got that wrong?
Yeah, or just making sure that different spaces have different uses and there's the ability to open up one space that may be more appropriate to whatever the number is, and to be able to close off other spaces if there becomes an issue. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Charleston.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much. I think it sounds like a really exciting project and I love how community-led it is already. I think I've got a better understanding now after Councillor Riddle about what you're thinking of in terms of what you're trying to build. But my other questions around, are you planning therefore to staff it all the time as a space? That's where your team will live going forwards. Obviously, Marcus is recommending we lease. Is that your preference as well, to lease rather than buy the land? And then finally, given your timeline, talking about 3 years away, but the pump track's happening now, what's your thoughts around looking after that space in the interim period before you've got your new, very shiny building?
Yeah.
Love the ambition of it.
Yeah, great points. And just on the size of the facility, I think we are looking at, we're not got loads of money, and it's not appropriate, I think, to build a big community facility because we don't want to take away from the other community facilities. So I think in terms of budget, I'm thinking it will be something around 300,000. So again, we're not going to build some massive thing or try and build something. I think with your other questions, again, we've got like 10 staff, and we've identified that young people really need and want just spaces that they can access after school when they need them. So at the moment, we have to run like very specific clubs at very specific times, and that's not really how young people work. And they need someone to go when they need somewhere safe to go when they need it, sort of thing. So we are looking to hopefully be able to open the facility on Gainsborough and this facility as much as possible after school. That would be the aim, just to be a space where, users of the pump track can just come and hang out and just have a little break, maybe chill out a bit, and then go out and take advantage of that asset. So yeah, that's our dream and our ambition. Obviously, it all depends on capacity. So if we do have to manage staff between the two sites, but I would imagine a sort of team of 3 being at both sites to allow them both to function, which I think is feasible and achievable. In terms of preferential option, I mean, selling to us is more security. So that's why I just said it. Like, I think that would be a preferable option, but I completely understand if that's not what you guys want to do. And what was the other question? In the interim, yeah. Well, I think, yeah, like it is a long time, and I would hope we could do it shorter. But I did propose that maybe in the interim, if we could even just put a couple of shipping containers and a couple of picnic benches, then we're essentially starting to create a sort of pilot. And, you know, if we could store some bikes, have a few tools and some picnic benches, we can start to use that space in the way that we want to design it. And we'll probably learn some things from that, and the community will have some opinions on the finished product. So I think, to me, that would make a lot of sense. Yeah.
I can tell you before I forget, Robin works really closely with all the agencies, and the land that we currently have, the garden and the new proposed hub, has been leased from Wiltshire Council. That's come through, hasn't it? Because you've now had the lease agreement for the hub.
Yeah, well, we're just, signing off a 125-year lease for our community garden, and have got an agreement in principle for the youth hub land, which, is like with the lawyers. So that is the kind of model we're working with Wiltshire Council, yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Robin, fantastic project. Fully support what you're doing. In fact, everything that you've done on Bemerton Heath has been brilliant. So why shouldn't this one be even more brilliant? I just have in my mind, and it's the only negative thought, is that we spent a lot of time and money between Wiltshire Council and Salisbury City Council on providing youngsters with a play area in Churchill Gardens, because that was the latest thing and people wanted to do it, parkour or something like that. And when you go past there now, you see very, very few people using it. And I think it's probably, like you have said, there was nobody there either teaching people or showing people or demonstrating the art of the possibility. And I think with Rise 61, you've got that exactly in what you're doing with your team, is very much being supportive of the local community. So I'm 110% supportive of this. I think leasing the land makes admirable sense. Who knows what money comes from government. You may even have a bigger building than you think you're going to get. From what I've read, that's money coming to Bemerton Heath from central government. So I'd like to move the recommendations, if I may.
That's okay. I'm just interested to know, I know you do an awful lot of work with alternative provisions for schools. Is this something that could be part of that going forward? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just asking if this facility could be used as alternative provisions for schools in the way that Rise 61 does a lot of work with schools already.
Yeah, so our bike hub and our active hub, so we do work in a gym down in Churchfields with alternative provisions. So there's definitely scope for that. And I would say I did hear about the PIP funding, that it looks like it is kind of looking very promising and might include revenue funding. And I think we've all said that what Bemerton Heath now needs is funding to, like Jeremy said, is to fund the people who are actually going to bring these assets to life. And again, I think you're absolutely right with, if you just put an asset in, but without, some positive adults to sort of help, they can sort of not be as good as what they should be. Yeah.
Councillor Nettle, back to you for your recommendation.
Okay. Mark, if you'd just like to, Chief Executive, if you'd just like to flow down to the recommendations at the end of the report, then I can read them as read. There we are. Thank you very much. So I'd like to move all the recommendations there, but including at this stage for officers to work out what the benefit would be, whether it's lease or sale. My personal preference would be lease, but I'll leave that out for the moment.
Happy to answer that, councillors. Lease.
Okay.
So I've moved the recommendations. So just looking for a seconder.
Councillor Johnson.
Sorry, could I just ask a question? Before?
Yep.
Is that all right? I know it's not in the right order, really. No, what is the budget likely to be to remove the existing park?
So we haven't had that costed as yet because, you know, it wanted to see whether councillors were interested in the proposal, but we're probably looking in the region of 20 to 25,000 pounds to have that all removed. But that is an estimate.
Okay,
That's not been fully costed.
And how would that be afforded?
So that would have to be part of the budget setting process for this forthcoming, the budget setting season as we enter it. If this is a project that councillors would like to see, they would have to put it into the budget for a subsequent year.
Thank you.
Good evening, Councillor Sample.
So we have a number of councillor-led amendments to the tree policy being put forward tonight. I will hand you over to Councillor Sample to put his case forward.
Chair, one of the great pleasures really of being a councillor is the ability to draw on the collective skill and expertise and professional advice of the officer team. And before I say anything further, I just want to thank Mark Reed for the help that he's given me and to other members of the community who, faced with a problem, has provided very, very good advice. And he introduced me in respect of my amendment. It owes a great deal to his drafting skills. We have had some issues, as you'll probably be aware, at St Edmund's Graveyard this summer. We also had actually a very similar problem last summer, and there does appear to be a growing problem nationally, actually, of people in that gap between homeless provision by the local authority and getting thrown out of their housing. There are a lot of people with mental health issues. There are a lot of people who've got drug and alcohol dependency who don't seem to be picked up by any agency. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've got the continuing problem. However, I have to say that a number of residents have spoken to me over the course of the last couple of weeks, particularly about the fact that they feel unsafe. There have been a number of issues of antisocial behaviour. There have probably been one or two incidents of criminal behaviour as well. And after a lot of discussion with Mark and the officer team, we have brought an amendment which is shown on the agenda tonight under 2.4. And I would just commend it to you. As you can see, we are asking you to recognise the dense low canopies and undergrowth can conceal antisocial behaviour or rough sleeping. that we allow targeted canopy lifting and clearance only where there is a verifiable evidence of persistent issues and as part of a multi-agency response, requiring the assessment of the parks team in collaboration with the police, community safety officers and support agencies. Work must be proportionate, BS 3998 compliant and mindful of biodiversity, and decisions to be documented, reviewed and where relevant subject to Wiltshire Council's permissions, brackets TPOs or conservation areas, close brackets. And the officer's position won't surprise you is that they support the principles of safety, compassion and multi-agency working, which are sound. So I thank them for their response. It's been, as I say, it's been a summer which has been, it's sad really that we've had a repetition of this issue. After sitting in on a number of meetings now, I'm absolutely certain that the officers in the police, in the housing department at Wiltshire Council and at Salisbury City Council are all talking together on a regular basis about how we can resolve issues. But the residents would very much like this amendment to the trees policy to be enacted so that it will enable the officers to take out some of those lower hanging branches and to make it easier, I think, for CCTV as well to pick up on any antisocial behaviour or criminal offences that might be committed. It might actually also lead to a slightly safer position, I think, for those people who choose, much against my wishes, to sleep there, because I think by opening up and making it easier and more visible, it's unlikely that someone is going to be lying there seriously ill or perhaps worse after an overdose or whatever. So I think everyone wins by introducing this policy. I don't think it will do any damage to the trees. I'm a great tree fan, as you'll know. I've set a target that we have 20% afforestation at Wiltshire Council, up 3%. I love trees. I would, don't really want to do anything that would damage them, but I am convinced that this is the right solution, the right tree in the right place, and the right solution from the officers. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Just before statement from Ms. Valerie Gardner, resident of Bedwin Street. I just also want to pay tribute to Mark and in particular Keith, our CCTV manager, who's in the public gallery tonight, as well as support from Councillor Sample, who has been really positive in pulling together responses from those responsible agencies in this area. So that is very challenging for us as a parish council. So I'd just like to say thank you to him. So the statement from Ms. Gardner. I understand that the subject of raising tree canopies in response to antisocial behaviour and rough sleeping is to be discussed at the next Environment Committee meeting. Many local residents use the grounds of the Arts Centre in Bedwin Street to meet, chat and walk their dogs. Currently there are 3 tents hidden by low-growing branches by the wall adjacent to the College Street car park. Whilst I have every sympathy with people who, for whatever reason, sleep rough, I hope that the council is doing their best to find them permanent accommodation, not only for their own comfort and well-being as we approach winter, but also so that the local residents can reclaim the open space which is so valuable to them in the centre of the city, many of whom have no outside space of their own. I might add that none of the current occupants of the tents have been in any way intimidating, unlike previous campers, but they are without toilets or anywhere to wash in the vicinity. I feel very sorry for the council employees that have to clear up after them. I believe that raising the canopy of the trees by a few feet in this location might deter rough sleepers, or at least make their presence more obvious to anyone walking through the churchyard. Providing that there is no detriment to the trees or biodiversity, I would support any action taken in this respect. Thank you, Chair.
I myself received an email today from Jill Lakeman, and she explained it from her point of view. She's in the audience. I spoke to her earlier. And I'm aware that Amesbury Town Council have done exactly that. I will now leave it open to questions.
Sorry to say, Councillor, if you wanted to assist Councillor Taylor.
Okay, is he in the audience as well? Before I open it out to questions, Councillor Suddard, did you want to add your voice? Are you here? Okay. Okay.
Are we going to take all of the sections and then have questions, or question each section?
I think shall we take all of them? Shall we, do you want to do one at a time?
Yeah, because.
One at a time? Right, okay. So any questions for Councillor Sample about the Arts Centre?
Yeah,
Councillor
very
Taylor.
supportive. I'm getting emails like many of us for supporting this particular policy. I think it's well written. I would just throw my weight behind it. I'm very happy with it. Thank you.
Sorry, I'll try. I know Paul's been working on this for a long time, and I know it's been an ongoing issue for a long time. I am supportive of the wording here. I think it's very sympathetic, and you said earlier that you worked really hard with Mark on it. I guess the two thoughts I've got is, obviously, the idea of this is it does move people on, and so the question to officers is, as ever, how can we do more to work in partnership around antisocial behaviour and this issue generally? I know we've spoken a lot about this. I know we had the meetings last year, and I'm just a bit nervous that we talk about multi-agency. I've been to meetings where the agencies haven't turned up. So I'm just a bit nervous that we can only do so much, but is this solving the overall problem?
Chair, I think the answer to that actually is no. I think the one thing that I'm clear about, that, you know, over the course of the last couple of years, and the mayor's here, I think there is a gaping hole in provision between those people like Elaborate and Salisbury Homeless, who provide a very good response to those people who are drug-free, have good mental health, and are and are alcohol-free. I think they do an excellent job, and the minute that people can sign on and claim benefit, that help and support clicks in. I think there's a real problem in terms of the provision of support for those people who are drug dependent, alcohol dependent, mental health, and find themselves homeless. And we do not provide a solution in Salisbury that is anywhere near acceptable. There is if there was one thing that we could do, it would be to step in and provide much better provision in terms of food, somewhere for people to stay, and the cheapest possible drop-in sleeping arrangements for those people who find themselves on the street, because it is not acceptable for residents to have to homeless residents to have to sleep in Culver Street and St Edmund's Church Street when we could provide something for them. It's a failure, I think, of government and of society to provide a solution for those individuals. And that's my big learning point.
I'd have to agree with you, Paul, actually, with my other hat on. I do voluntary support, and I've done that for many years with people from all walks of life. And I've also said the same as you for many years. There isn't joined up thinking, which is a shame in this day and age. Can we do more? Not as a council, not really, other than keep banging on that door. Wiltshire Council, Wiltshire Police, the Drug Dependency Unit, they should all be working together. But unfortunately, there is no safety net. And once they fall through the net, that's when we find them camping on someone's or anyone's doorstep. There is no quick fix. But at the same time, we've got to take into account our other residents, haven't we, really? And I'm quite happy with your amendment. And I know it's been moved and seconded. If nobody else has got any questions, are we all happy to support this? Yeah, we get Mark to do the work that's needed to be done. You all happy? Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Oh, Jeremy, sorry.
Nothing, absolutely supportive of this. But taking Councillor Charleston's point, yesterday when the mayor had his bike ride through the city, there were three individuals who were in need of some sort of support. Now, I don't know what's happened, but, and it's not, sorry, this is not a political statement, it's going to sound like it. But in the days when we had individuals that patrolled the streets, they did do that. They were the first responders to people who were suffering, who needed homes to go to, who needed a safe place to go to. And so this council did provide some sort of immediate support. However, I know life changes, but you go to other cities and there's emergency people on bikes that go and visit these people, and they have organisations. And I do think that this is obviously going to increase, not decrease, sadly. And I think we do need to start thinking about strategically how we support these individuals on our street through the multi-agencies. And I don't think it's fair to not Wiltshire Council, Salisbury City Council, Elaborate, or any of these. It's the responsibility of all of us. And yesterday, my wife, who used to be a community nurse, went to these three people, got them drinks, and talked to them and to understand why they were there and did they have anywhere to go to. And some of the stories are quite horrific, and it's not fair to reflect those this evening. But I do think we do have a moral obligation to support those most vulnerable. Thank you.
On that note, Councillor Nettle, I can tell you that the homeless allocation team do a sweep 3 times a day across the city. And they will provide drink and food, and if they need any medical attention. But a lot of, and this is going to sound terrible, and I don't mean it to sound terrible. Some of them, not all, but some of them are still on the street because they've done it for that long. That's what they're conditioned to. There's 3 that I know of currently that have been allocated a place in Elaborate and not gone. And then it goes the other way, where you've got them living in Elaborate, John Baker, Salisbury Trust for the Homeless. But if the friends are still on the street, they all gather together, they have a drink, and that's where they fall asleep. There is no right and wrong here, and I get what you're saying about a moral. But it's there, but for the grace of God go I think is the phrase I'm going to use. And I think that's where we all are, isn't it, really? None of us likes to see anybody suffering and in a worse state. And unfortunately, they come from all walks of life. So, moving on. Councillor Stoddard.
Over to Councillor Stoddard.
Hi, thanks very much, Chair. So effectively, this proposal came out of discussions I had with residents as I was campaigning pre-May, where some houses in certain areas within my ward are quite frustrated, if you like, about the council and certain council trees that are very close to their property. And these trees were once, beautiful, relatively small trees. They're now huge, huge trees, and effectively are causing them a nuisance. At Suffolk Road in particular, there are, there's a line of 6 or 7 really huge trees at the end of the garden in Essex Square, where those trees effectively overhang these gardens of, not very wealthy houses, and take up a lot of space, a lot of light, and it's pretty much over 50% of their garden is overhung by these massive trees. And certain residents there effectively would like to have those pruned, but literally just can't afford it. And right now, the tree policy, does not allow for discretionary pruning. It allows for pruning where there's a safety impact, where a tree might be unsafe, or branches may, fall off for an unhealthy tree and damage, property or people, or they impact rights of way and paths. What I'm proposing here is we amend the policy to allow some limited discretionary pruning where effectively there is a strong case for it, and importantly, where budget provision enables it. It's not intended to be a free-for-all, that everybody has a right to council pruning for perfectly healthy trees that overhang their property, but it's all about being a good neighbour. We expect, if we have a dog, as that dog grows up, we're expected to make sure that we act as a good neighbour in how that dog acts around other people's property. If we have a hedge, then we have to limit the height of that hedge to a certain height. But right now, if we have a tree that's owned by the council on council property, at the moment, we have no legal obligation at all to do anything about it. We can let people, chop up to the borderline of their property. They have a legal right to do that. But in many cases, it's just not practical for a pensioner to, spend £800, £900 to hire somebody in to do that. And I think, as I say, without opening the floodgates and within limited financial measures, and we could even, state an amount as part of budget setting for discretionary pruning to enable that. Mark kindly produced a draft statement, I think largely built, if I'm fair to say, on effectively discussions I had with him over a particular resident's concerns, which is the version 1 in the paperwork. And then I kindly was allowed to have a look at that and proposed a few small amendments to that. I think twofold, well, no, threefold. Firstly, it was to stress strongly that this is discretionary and, budget availability could impact whether we do something or not. Secondly, to slightly reduce the threshold. I think you put 70 years, I put 67. What I really meant to say was to tie in with state retirement age, which currently is 67, but obviously over the years will increase slightly. And thirdly, to in terms of the factors supporting the discretionary decision, to kind of just keep it a bit more open than the way Mark had worded it, so that effectively it can be a combination of factors that allow the decision to say, yes, this is a justifiable case to use discretionary money to cause that, enable that pruning. As somebody who has lived in houses where I have had nuisance trees, it really does impact people, because every time you look at that tree, you think, yeah, that used to be a beautiful tree 30, 40 years ago. It's now just a complete and utter nuisance. And when people, neighbours, that it doesn't actually affect, because often it affects you as the neighbour more than the actual owner of the tree, who, where it's located in their garden or whatever, it means that they're not affected by it. It is incredibly annoying. So I do understand particular residents' concerns. And I think it's all part of the council actually being a good neighbour, which at times I don't think it is currently. So I'd say there are two versions drafted. I would recommend version 2, which I think is a bit stronger and gives more leeway to the council. And I think if we wanted to say a separate budget had to be ring fenced around this as part of budget setting, I'd be more than happy with that.
Thank you. Before I move to you, Chris, Mark, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, thank you. So I think from an officer's point of view, we don't like ambiguity, because that certainly when it comes to trees, we've got thousands of them. I think it's 15,000 trees that we maintain in the city now, with the number of trees we've planted. So with any policy or any procedure, we want clarity so that there's no ambiguity. I think Councillor Saddard's suggestion of a separate budget, which is ring-fenced for this purpose, would lend itself to easing my fears around this somewhat. I think at the moment we have a core policy which deals with dead, dying and dangerous trees. This sits outside of that, and I think it should be treated slightly differently. So if that is something that councillors really want to focus on, then that's the way it should be looked at. I, as an officer of the council, I am nervous about anything which is discretionary, because then it's about who shouts the loudest, and that then puts unnecessary pressure on officers to, I think, to act in a way that's not always proportionate, not always evidence based. So I would just ask councillors to consider that with any decision they make this evening.
Come back on that, please. So when it's discretionary, I think it's about making the case and making decisions. And we have a grant system whereby people request grants, and it's up to council to vote them yes or no. So I think it's quite feasible that this is treated in the same way, that people effectively put forward I would like to bid for discretionary funding, that the council prunes that tree. In that way, it operates in exactly the same way that other bids for money to do something happen.
I'm very aware of the trees that Councillor Saddards is particularly concerned about. Other residents in our ward have raised similar sort of matters to me at various times in the past. And I really do sympathise. I am worried that we could commit ourselves to something unquantifiable. It's okay saying we could just have pulling a figure out of the air, a £20,000 budget. But how do we prioritise the people within that budget? And how do we know how many people are going to come forward to us? Are we going to have to investigate the personal financial circumstances of everybody who wants us to come and cut down their tree? Are the officers going to have to do that? Or not cut it down, but prune it? I certainly wouldn't agree with any felling in this system. I just think it's an unknown, and I'm not trying to be unhelpful here, because I hear the same things that you do. I'll see what other people think.
Councillor Taylor.
Right, so I've got a few slides. We can look at them later or as part of this, because they're effectively the same issue. I don't mind. Or I can talk to Councillor Saddard's amendment. They're basically very similar topics. Up to you. Oh, I'm seeing PowerPoint come up. I'll be honest, I think our tree policy at the moment is appalling. I'm going to use that word because I just want to make it clear what my view is. I think it lacks compassion for people. And I hear what Councillor Riddle says. I love trees. Come and look at my garden. I've got many mature trees. I spent 3 weeks at Easter looking at a rainforest. Love trees, great for the planet. Let's plant more trees. All in favour. Let's look after the trees we've got. All in favour. But we must care for the residents that live in our city, and we must have some compassion for their concerns. Montgomery Gardens is in my patch. Next slide, please. That's the bit in the circle that's going to come up on the next slide, all being well. If we get that, there we go. That's a cricket pitch, used to be. Sadly, it's a housing estate now. The houses on there are all very small. Most of the people that live in them, I would say, were economically challenged for one reason or another. Next slide, please. It's overgrown by massive trees on all sides. The trees overhang the houses, they overhang the gardens. Early on in my time as a city councillor, I went to Mark and said, I've got a gentleman, he's dying, he's not going to see out the year. There's one branch hanging over his garden. Please, can we lop it off so he can see the sunlight for his last few weeks? The answer was no, because it's not in accordance with our policy. And our policy has no wriggle room. There's no latitude, there's no discretion. Which is what Councillor Suddard is basically talking about. Next slide, please. More branches. That's the offending branch on the right-hand side. It would have cost us next to nothing to lop it off. It would have made the quality of life of one individual much better. Next slide, please. Homing in now on Hawthorne Close. Next slide, please. This is just off Wilton Road. That tree is a legacy tree. Goodness knows how it ended up still being there. It's surrounded by Wiltshire Council property. It is on a piece of land owned by Salisbury City Council that's about 3 metres by about 3 metres. Next slide, please. It overhangs the houses. Next slide, please. It's huge. It's touching the walls. It covers all the cars in sap and debris. Next slide, please. That's the base of the tree. That's the bit of Salisbury City Council land that we own, just that bit. Everything around it isn't ours. We don't even keep it tidy. We don't even look after it. It's an eyesore and it's a mess. Next slide, please. It needs pruning. It needs cutting back. Can we do it right now? No, because it's not in accordance with the policy. That policy lacks compassion. That tree is a lovely tree, and in a park, Hudson's Field, it would be marvellous. Even in my house, we could live with it. But where it is right now is not great, and it hasn't been pruned properly in years. Next slide, please. These are my suggestions. Next slide, please. I've put in tree removal. I know Councillor Riddle's vehemently opposed to this. What I would like to see is a policy that allows our officers to come to us with suggestions for the best possible outcome for residents and as the council, whatever that is, pruning or whatever. That's why I've put in extreme cases that might require a tree to be removed. Next slide, please. This basically talks about exactly what Councillor Suddard said. I'm not ageist. I think putting a 67 or a 70-year-old in there, bearing in mind I'm 67, I don't think that's as relevant as we think it might be. But basically, we as a city council ought to have compassion for our residents, and where residents can't afford to cut down branches, we ought to have discretion to be able to do so. Next slide, please. That's why I've said tree removal incur a considerable cost, but should be considered. We can always offset cutting down a tree by growing more. Next slide, please. That's the same, haven't changed it. Next slide, please. And I've just added removal as a possibility, but only as a possibility if it's recommended by officers in extreme cases. That's me done. Thank you.
Just going to say something, Councillor Charlton, and I'll send it in your way. You say about compassion, and I completely hear that. Our main housing provider is Wiltshire Council. The housing associations the people that get their homes have come off Homes for Wiltshire. And can I tell you what their policy is? I have tenants up on Bemerton Heath. You've got them on your side, Councillor Johnson, as well. If the trees are in the garden, there is no, their policy is stricter than ours, believe it or not. It's not down to them. It's not down to us. It's down to the resident. What they do say is if the resident has problems funding that, they can get in touch with the council and they work out a payment plan. I have a lady that's just had £5,000 worth of work done in her garden. And I've had to do an income and expenditure form to make sure she can pay this money back. But that's how they've done it. So I'm going to now leave it to Councillor Charlton to say her bit.
Thank you. I'm going to carry on standing up, sorry. I absolutely sympathise with Councillor Stoddard, and I do get it, and I do understand our residents. But as Mark said, we work on dangerous trees and dead trees right now. And I've been a councillor not a very long time, but I've been a councillor now for 5 years. And all I've ever seen is our tree budget go overspend every year because we look after so many trees, and we work to a minimum of making sure they're safe right now. What Councillor Stoddard's amendment asked for is gold standard, and I'd love us to be there, but I don't think our finances can afford to be at gold standard right now. Perhaps it's something we can aim for, but I'm not sure I could support it at this moment in time. Again, we've all got tree problems. We've all had residents come to us, either their council or their neighbours of council, or it's a tree in the street, and everybody has an issue with these trees. And as Jenny says, Wiltshire Council is much harder than we are. I'm just not sure. I mean, you know, my road is 101 houses, and I can think of 3 houses where it's constantly banging on about what can we do about this. I think we're just opening up to extraordinary amounts of money, and I just don't think it's what we can do right now.
Councillor Foster.
Thank you. I'll say a couple of things very similar there. The first one I want, and actually I think from, was it option 1, option 2 and option 3, we've sort of got that opening unknown unknowns, as was mentioned, and I'm an even newer councillor, but hopefully I'm here at least for another 3.5 years. So why not start with the tightest restrictions, and then if in a year's time, we as a group loosen them, if we think we can. So I think that there's sort of scope there. This isn't definitive tonight forevermore. If suddenly there continues to be issues, let's readdress this and change the age or change the meterage, the percentage. So I think that's where I am. You know, I think it's a continuing journey, almost, as was just said. The second thing is, this also matches with Councillor Corbyn's one that's just on the screen. Residents can prune it themselves if they're able to, and I know that not all residents can, but actually the policy allows for the fact if it's overhanging and you don't like it, chop it off. This is just for the cases where you can't do it yourself. And having looked at that, unless the officers correct me, I think you're pretty much entitled to prune overhangs based on the wording of the policies of 3.11 in there as well. So I thought that was sort of worth of note as well. And then I did have a third point, but it escapes me. I should write these things down. So yeah, those were my thoughts there. I think, yeah, this is potentially just the start of a journey. Oh, and that was it. What question to the officers on the removal of trees that was mentioned earlier. We're not Parliament, and you know, Parliament is king ultimately, but as council, even if we approve this policy and we don't include the removal, if somebody really wanted to remove a tree in the future, could it not come as a special case to this committee or council to remove a tree? So again, I think there's a sort of question there of let's be conservative now, but if there really is a case to remove a really nuisance tree, we can address that a different way rather than potentially open the floodgate here. Is I think, you know, being conservative, but there is wiggle room if required. Thank you.
Mark, do you want to come back on that?
I was going to say, again, that there's no room for that in the policy at the moment. So if you wanted to have, you know, that as a thing where residents were able to make a case to councillors, that would have to be something else. That,
As in, we could literally have a motion one evening for a tree. It doesn't even have to change the policy, is almost a thought. Yeah.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Foster. That's kind of
Sorry,
my point.
John.
Sorry.
I apologise. Councillor
Sorry, that's
Wells.
kind of my point. Okay, thank you.
Yes, I mean, I've got direct experience of the sort of issue we're discussing, and I discussed it with Mark earlier today. There is a sycamore tree, which is enormous, which overhangs 4 gardens at the back of my garden. And the person who's responsible for that tree is a recluse, and I'm not sure that able to communicate with them. I do have the option of removing some of the sections which overhang my garden, and I've taken a small amount off, but I have had somebody come and look at it. And in fact, there's a broader issue here, because if I start lopping lumps off somebody's tree of that size, it could destabilize it, and that could have further repercussions in terms of the tree falling on somebody else's property. So this is a very complex, it's a very costly issue. And, you know, you did make some good points, but I'm not sure that cutting a tree down because the dog poos on your car is a good enough reason for pruning it. Did you not?
The dog poos on your car.
Sorry, not dog poo, bird poo. But anyway, you know, the fact that birds sit in the tree and poo on your car isn't a reason for cutting it down. So I think it needs to be, the policy is, I think, is sound because it enables the staff to manage their budget and to manage dangerous trees in the city.
I know you're chomping at the bit to say something else, and then we are going to do a vote.
Yeah, thank you. I'm more than happy with the principle of starting small and expanding. You can do that in terms of money and just, you know, vote in a small amount of money and see how far that pot stretches versus demand. As ever, there's probably going to be a bow wave of demand to begin with before it settles down. That would be my first point. I'm not sure that 1, 2, 3, as you've mentioned it, is actually the order of most restrictive to least restrictive. In many ways, you know, what Councillor Taylor has mentioned, whereby you have the option to, you know, if our, you know, professional people say, actually, the best option here is to remove it, put in place a smaller tree that is not going to grow to, you know, gargantuan heights. It's far more appropriate to that particular setting where you don't have to go back every 5 years or 10 years, you know, pruning by, you know, multiple times over a 40-year period, as opposed to just replacing an inappropriate tree with something that is that's never going to grow to the point where it becomes a nuisance tree, is actually a worse thing than allowing that flexibility for the council staff. I think the other thing is, you know, I'm a bit disappointed that when we seem to have a policy of, you know, plants, baby plants, to rephrase Donald Trump's famous saying, whereby if we're not willing to look after the trees that we own as a council, and, you know, make sure that we're a good neighbour. And I'm a supporter of planting trees, but I'm a supporter of responsible planting of trees and responsible looking after trees that we own. And I think, you know, therefore, I urge people to give this a go. You know, call it a trial. You know, put it in as a, if necessary, put it in as a, you know, 1 year or 2 year trial period with a limited amount of money, and allow the neighbour to try and be a better neighbour than we are at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to hand over to Asa now to talk us through the voting.
Councillors, as a pragmatic way forward, can I suggest we vote on version 1 first by a simple show of hands, then we vote on version 2, and then what I will do for the Taylor amendment, I'll call for a proposer and a seconder, and then we can vote on that. Hopefully that's with agreement from everybody present. So,
Which bit are we voting on at the moment? Could you read it out to us? Would that be all right?
Councillor Johnson.
So just a quick question. We've had the visibility of the written amendment in front of us here. We have 2 versions. We now have a 3rd version. We have briefly seen on screen. I don't think we've been able to give that full consideration. I would suggest that maybe we need to go back to the drawing board, and those who are proposing amendments in this regard get together, get all their ducks in a row, and bring it back at another time when they have one proposal to make. Thank you.
My guess is not my guess, my suggestion is that's entirely whether or not the, let's call it Taylor amendment, receives a proposer and a seconder. If they do, then the committee would vote. I guess it's entirely up to Councillor Taylor, and if he can find a seconder for us to vote on that.
In the spirit of trying to keep things simple and just wanting something to happen, can I just propose we vote for Amendment 1?
So my amendment was basically an update on Councillor Suddard's amendment, just trying to tweak it and improve it. It did add the option in to remove a tree in extremis if officers thought that was the best way ahead. But broadly speaking, my proposal supports Councillor Suddard's proposal. I wanted to get rid of a few things like the age line, but broadly speaking, I support the discretionary pruning of trees.
So what we'll go for first, if that's okay, then is vote on version 1, then we'll vote on version 2, then I will look to my left at councillor Taylor. Yeah? Excellent. Okay. So those in favour of version 1? Mark, is it possible that you can read out version 1, the version that you support?
Yeah, so these are very, very long, so just bear with me. It's not a, it's quite a mouthful, so just bear with me 1 second.
Can I ask a question? So because they're all so similar, I remember we had this vote at the first council meeting I went to about weed killer, and we went round and round in circles. So we've now got 3 very similar options. Most of us might support most of those options. So are we allowed to vote once or 3 times, or how's this going to work?
So councillor, apologies, because it's been a long day for me. This is why we send out papers in advance, so that councillors can read them in advance and be aware of what they're going to be asked to be voting on. We have version 1. There is a difference to version 2. Mark is happy to read out the difference between the 2 of them. If you'd like to then propose a 3rd amendment, we can then have a vote on that. We can have Mark read that out as well. From my perspective, I assumed that we would take a simple vote at this point because everybody has read the papers, but we've had at least 2 councillors that have asked for them to be read out. I can't ignore that. So, Mark, please read out version 1. We'll take a vote. Everybody gets to vote on version 1. It'll be by a simple show of hands and a simple majority. We'll then have Mark read out version 2. We'll do the same. Councillor Taylor will then decide whether or not he is proposing his amendment. There will then be a seconder. We will then vote again with a simple show of hands. Apologies that this is the process that we have to go through, but if somebody says they want something read out, we have to read it out. Mark, over to you for version 1.
Version 1. So 3.23, Salisbury City Council recognises that in a limited number of cases, trees on council-managed land, while healthy and structurally sound, can cause substantial and ongoing detriment to the use and enjoyment of adjacent residential properties. In such circumstances, the council may authorise discretionary pruning to reduce specific impacts without compromising the tree's health or setting an unsustainable precedent. 3.23.2, discretionary pruning may be considered only where all of the following apply. And this is where the difference is, between this one and Councillor Sellars, because I've asked for all of the following to apply. The tree overhangs a residential garden to a significant degree, e.g. more than 5 metres into the property or over 50% of the garden area. The overhang causes serious loss of light to habitable rooms or private garden areas, or results in excessive seasonal litter fall that is demonstrably unmanageable for the resident. The resident is aged 70 plus, has a registered disability, or provides evidence of limited physical or financial means to address the issue privately. The works requested are minor one-off pruning operations that do not unbalance or otherwise compromise the health of the tree. 3.23.3. Requests will be assessed by a council officer, for example, one of our parks officers, with a recommendation approved by the head of environmental services, that's me. Each case must include a site visit and photographic evidence, an impact assessment considering cannabis spread, overshadowing, and any physical obstruction, consultation with the tree care contractor regarding arboricultural feasibility. 3.23.4, if approved, works will be carried out at a time of year appropriate to the tree species and wildlife regulations. The council retains discretion to refuse requests where the tree has high ecological, heritage or visual value. The proposed pruning would set a precedent that undermines policy principles, and the issue can be reasonably managed by the resident or via informal pruning to the boundary. 3.23.5, this clause does not create a right to pruning, but enables the council to act in exceptional and compassionate circumstances, balancing neighbourliness with the council's statutory tree management responsibilities. That's version 1.
So, councillors, all those in favour of version 1? You get to vote on all 3 options. So it's just a simple, those in favour? So at the moment, that looks like one hand in favour of version 1. Oh, sorry, 2 with the chair. All those against? 1, 2, 3. And those abstaining? 1, 2, 3, 4. So version 1 falls. Mark, could you read out version 2 for us, please?
I can indeed, and please do listen because it's very, very similar to the last one. So 3.23, Salisbury City Council recognises that in a limited number of cases, trees on council-managed land, while healthy and structurally sound, can cause substantial and ongoing detriment to the use and enjoyment of adjacent residential properties. In such circumstances, the council may authorise discretionary pruning to reduce specific impacts without compromising the tree's health or setting an unsustainable precedent. 3.23.2, discretionary pruning may be considered considering the following factors. The trees overhangs a residential garden to a significant degree, e.g. more than several metres into the property or over a high proportion of the garden area. The overhang causes serious loss of light to habitable rooms or private garden areas, or results in excessive seasonal litter fall that is demonstrably unmanageable for the resident. The resident is age 67 plus or provides evidence of limited physical or financial means to address the issue privately. The works requested are one-off pruning operations that do not unbalance or otherwise compromise the health of the tree. There is in-year budget availability to meet this discretionary task. 3.23.3, requests will be assessed by a council officer, for example, a parks officer, with a recommendation approved by the head of environmental services. Each case must include a site visit and photographic evidence, and impact assessment considering canopy spread, overshadowing, and any physical obstruction, consultation with the tree care contractor regarding arboricultural feasibility. 3.23.4, if approved, works will be carried out at a time of year appropriate to the tree species and wildlife regulations. The council retains discretion to refuse requests where the tree has high ecological heritage or visual value. The proposed pruning would set a precedent that undermines policy principles. The issue can be reasonably managed by the resident or via informal pruning to the boundary. 3.23.5, this clause does not create a right to pruning, but enables the council to act in exceptional and compassionate circumstances, balancing neighbourliness with the council's statutory tree management responsibilities, and is subject to environmental services having budget availability. Thank you.
Councillors, those in favour of version 2? 1. Those against? 6. And those abstaining? 1. Thank you. Councillor Taylor, will you be moving your amendment, sir? Are you moving an amendment that we're going to vote on?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Version 3.
Are you
if you put the last
proposing, sir?
PowerPoint slide up, it's got the wording.
Okay, not a problem at all. Are you proposing?
Yes.
And seconding? Councillor Nettle, not a problem. We'll put it on screen.
If you put the summary slide up there again, that's the wording. Or you can look at each paragraph in turn.
Which slide would you like, sir?
Just run through them one by one. It's that thing blown up into bigger font.
Okay.
So that's very similar to what Councillor Suddard had put, a few minor amendments. So very, very similar. But I got rid of the ageist thing and included the extreme option to remove a tree if officers thought that was the best way ahead.
Okay, are you happy for us to take a vote, sir? Excellent. Okay, those councillors in favour of the amendment? 2. Those against? 7. And that amendment falls. Thank you. Chair, I believe now we have to move to Councillor Corbyn's amendment. And then after that, we have an amendment proposed by Mossin Coombs, one of our estate managers. Would you like Mark to take us through Councillor Corbyn's?
Yep. So in Councillor Corbyn's absence, she has requested a slight amendment to section 3.11, which is about when pruning takes place and how that any pruning that takes place by a resident and how that is then disposed of. There's no issues from an officer's point of view in terms of this one. Very happy to support it if councillors are also minded to do so.
Anyone, any questions for that? No, so we're happy to go to a vote. Okay. So to vote for Councillor Corbyn's amendment, do we have a proposer and a seconder? Well, we already have a proposer, we just take it. Okay, we can just take it. That's what makes life so much easier. Those in favour? Yeah.
Those against? Abstaining?
And then the final one is a request put forward by our estates manager, Mostyn Coombs. Again, I will speak on his behalf as he's not here this evening. There are different times when we take on assets that we weren't necessarily expecting. One that happened over the last couple of years was when the boundary change happened up in the Harnham area. We took on some extra responsibilities for the Harnham slope that was a Wiltshire Council responsibility, but because the boundaries changed, and under the devolution of services, the City Council looks after trees within the City Council boundary. It wasn't in the same condition as what we would normally look after our sites. And so this is to allow where we do take on any responsibility of a site, it's to allow us to get in there, do a bit of clearance and then one-off clearance to be able to manage the site in an effective way. Thank you. Okay, so that's what Mostyn has to say. We can go straight to a vote. Do you support? Oh, look at that. Carried. I think that's the plan. We're going to do a 5-minute break, Mark, if that's okay. Works for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Come back with a new discretion.
5 minutes. It takes me longer than that to stand up.
Isn't this discussion irrelevant? We have